Hey there, welcome to episode 113 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is basically going to be the new centerpiece of my entire collection. I've got thousands of pieces. My whole room is all just a big display of toys and stuff. But this piece here that I'm going to be talking about today, this is where everybody's eyes are going to be drawn. When they enter this room now, everybody's going to aim right for this thing because this thing it's big and it's impressive. And it's definitely going to get your attention. So this is Snake Mountain from the Masters of the Universe Classics line, as produced by Super 7. So I've been talking about this thing for a while. If you watch my videos on the regular, I've been saying that, I'm going to review Snake Mountain because it's going to show up this week, and then it got delayed, and then I thought it's going to come this week, and then it got delayed again. So basically, just for a very quick little history, Mattel, who owns the Masters of the Universe property, they created it. They had started a line of toys called Masters of the Universe Classics around 2009. And this was basically an updated take on the vintage toys. So they looked a lot like the vintage toys of the 80s, but they were bigger, more articulated, all that sort of stuff. And it was made for collectors. They only made one figure each month that you had to order through their website or through a subscription service. So this was never made available to kids in stores. And because it was a collector's line, for a long time, people questioned whether we'd ever get any of the vehicles or play sets, because just how would that really work? But the line did last for several years. It actually just ended in about 2019, so the line ran for 10 years or so. And in that time, they managed to do quite a few vehicles, and they released Castle Grayskull, which was a big, impressive, jumbo-sized version of the Castle Grayskull that we had when we were kids, and it was cool. But if memory serves, I think it was about $300 American when it came out. I'm Canadian, so you can tack on an extra 30% for me, so that's $400, and then shipping for something that big, I'm probably looking at close to another $100, so I was like $500 for Castle Grayskull. Even though it would have been a cool piece to have in my collection, I opted not to get it. I had the vintage Castle Grayskull in my collection already, which I kind of use as a backdrop for my Masters of the Universe Classics figures. So even though it wasn't quite to scale, it served its purpose. And the thing is, as a kid, my older brother owned Castle Grayskull. So because it was his, I never had quite that same attachment to it, even though Castle Grayskull is that iconic castle that everybody thinks about when they think of Masters of the Universe. You think of He-Man holding up his sword by the power of Grayskull. You see the castle in the background. It's iconic. Now, people that aren't big fans of Masters of the Universe might not be as familiar with Snake Mountain, but that was the bad guys lair, kind of the equivalent of Castle Grayskull for the bad guys. And that's the toy I had as a kid. So I loved that Snake Mountain. It was the biggest playset I owned as a kid. I owned some G.I. Joe stuff and some Star Wars stuff. But yeah, Snake Mountain was this big piece of plastic, and I really loved that playset. I also loved that it kind of felt like a character in and of itself, because again, if you watch my videos, you'll know I buy a lot of figures, but I don't buy a lot of vehicles. Like when it comes to G.I. Joes and stuff, I'm just not that attached to the vehicles and playsets and things. But with Snake Mountain, it had a face, so it felt like the mountain was alive. It had a snake attached to it that coiled around, so the snake was kind of like a living character. It also had this rat head on the top of the mountain, so it's almost like you had multiple characters in this one playset. So yeah, I really loved that Snake Mountain playset. Anyway, as the Masters of the Universe Classic line was winding down, they showed a prototype of a Snake Mountain that they had hoped to get released, and unfortunately Mattel never got around to releasing it. But this thing was huge. It dwarfed even Castle Grayskull, and it just had all the bells and whistles. It looked amazing, but it seemed like we were never going to get that. And when Mattel stopped producing the Classics figures, the smaller company, Super 7, came in and they said, can we continue on with the line? So they licensed the property from Mattel, and they continued to produce Classics figures. And they did that for about 2 years or so. They had the license, and then Mattel took the license back, because now Mattel is doing a whole bunch of new toy lines to associate with the new Netflix show and all that stuff. Anyway, Super 7 announced they were going to do this Snake Mountain thing, And I think by the time they got the wheels turning on it, they'd since lost the license. So Snake Mountain was going to be the last thing they produced, and it was going to be the last part of the Classics line. So I don't know if that was ever the intent when they started out with it. I wouldn't be surprised that if Super 7 knew they were going to lose the license, they might not have even taken this task on. But, the wheels were already in motion, so even though the license had ended, they said we're going to do this Snake Mountain. They put it up for pre-order, and this thing was expensive. It was quite a bit more than the Castle Grayskull. But again, I had this attachment to it. I've been collecting this line for the 10 years. Snake Mountain seemed like it would be a really nice final signature piece. So I went ahead and pre-ordered this thing. I paid for this thing back in June of 2019. And so now here we are in March 2021. And I just had this thing arrive at my doorstep 3 days ago. So it's been a long wait. Now, I'm used to that sort of stuff. I've backed Kickstarters and stuff in the past. I've been pretty patient. So, I'm a patient guy. I was waiting for it. But one thing that was a little troubling with this is because this thing was so large, Super 7 didn't want to be mailing it to all these individual addresses all over the world. So for every country outside of the United States, they needed a partner that would kind of take all the orders for that country and then distribute them themselves from there. And so at the time when this thing first went up for pre-order, they hadn't listed a Canadian partner yet, so I wasn't sure if I'd even be able to get it. Eventually, some guy stepped up and said, I'll serve as the distribution center or however that worked. But this guy, as far as I could tell, it was a tattoo shop in Alberta on the other side of the country called The Force and the Flesh, because this guy specializes in Star Wars tattoos. And so I had to pay that guy. And I'm like, I'm sending a lot of money to a tattoo shop in Alberta. I have no track record with this guy. I don't know him at all. I've never heard of this tattoo shop. And then I have to wait. I knew I was going to be waiting at least a year before I got this thing. So I was scared to death. What if after 6 months this guy's website goes down and I can't find him anymore or something? So that I was a little more scared with this one than I have been with other pre-orders that took a really long time to get coming. Now, by the way, so my toy obviously arrived just fine. And I will say that Shane, the guy that owns the Force and the Flesh tattoo shop or whatever, he was great with communicating. He kept us informed of any delays and all that stuff. So no problem there at all. So yeah, if you're in Canada and you're thinking of dealing with him again, I think he's probably going to be the distributor for Super 7's new Thunder Tank. I give him my thumbs up. You can go ahead and deal with him. It went fine. But yeah, so this thing started arriving for people in the US in December, before Christmas. That's when Super 7 said, okay, we've got them. They're coming overseas. They're here in the States. So people started posting them on Instagram and everything in December. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have mine. I might have it before Christmas. But then Shane ran into some issues. The boxes were bigger than he was told they were going to be. And then so the cost of shipping was going to be quite a bit higher. And he didn't want to have to absorb all those costs himself. So we had to wait till the holiday season was over. And then there was a couple other issues. I won't bore you with all that. But it was a real nail-biting time. I was like, I want this thing to show up. Because then I was seeing other people internationally posting pictures of it. And I'm here in Canada waiting. Am I the last person in the world to get this thing? And I think I might be. I don't know. Because even other people in Canada started posting this thing a week and a half before I got mine. And I'm on the east coast of Canada. So it took a while to get to me. But anyway, it showed up here last week. And I got a call on Wednesday. And it was from the shipping company called Armor Transport. And they said, are you going to be around tomorrow? And I said, yes, of course. I work from home these days because during COVID. So I sit in this little office, the spare bedroom at the front of my house. And I could not work on Thursday because I knew they were coming at some point that day. They told me the morning. They didn't actually show up until 3 p.m., I think. So all day long, I just couldn't focus on work at all. I just kept looking out my window. I had my dog in the window because I knew she'd bark as soon as a truck pulled up. So I kept hoping I'd hear her barking. So all day long, I was waiting for this thing. And then finally it showed up. Have a great day. Yeah, you too. Get a secondary box inside of this box. Alright, box number 2. Okay, so I've got the external boxes all off. Here you see it. Original artwork on the front. Shows some features on the side. Kind of this diagram blueprint on the back, just like the vintage toys. And then the story of Snake Mountain on this side here. All right, so now we're ready to open up and take a look at the actual thing. All right, so we got the instruction booklet here. This here's a separate box. I assume this has probably the throne and some of the extra accessory pieces in there. All right, another box. Another box. I think the final box with pieces. All right, so all right. So that's the back end. Front, but then it opens up and here's the piece at full size. Oh yeah, looks pretty cool.
I think it's insane.
Now let's take a look at what's in all these boxes. So this first one, this is Skeletor's Bone Throne. So that's pretty cool. Now this piece here is the Monster Pit, complete with tentacles. On the vintage Snake Mountain, this was just a sticker, but now we get a nicely sculpted 3D piece. Alright, there's a whole bunch of pieces in here. So we've got the gate, look at the control panel. We got another gate, and then on the original Snake Mountain, there was all kinds of like demonic faces sculpted right into the main piece on the inside. This time around, we get the pieces all separately, and they have to be attached. So there's the first of our demonic faces. This here is the bridge that will attach to the front in front of the lava volcano, and this helps to kind of lock these two pieces in place so they don't move around too much. This here looks to be another demonic face for the inside. Some rocks, I'm not quite sure where they attach. Another face. This here is the ladder accessory, just like we got with the vintage toy. This here is Skeletor's table, where he hatches all of his evil plans. So him and his evil warriors can gather around there. Two more pieces. So this here is the net, which goes here underneath the trap door. I'm not going to unravel that right now. And lastly, one small little demonic face. So this one here contains the rat-headed pillar, which in the original toy was the echo mic that you could speak into. This one doesn't do that, but... And then we've got the head of the snake, which coils around Snake Mountain. You can see its body here. And this head will attach to the top once we get the tower on there. So I suspect the tower is what we'll find in here. So here's the tower that will attach on top and give us our final height of Snake Mountain. So the pillar here, it opens up, there's a secret compartment in there. It's not very big though, so I don't know what you'll fit in there, but so this here attaches over here. And the gate. And I think that's just about it for the external facade of Snake Mountain. Now otherwise, we'll have to flip it around and take a look at the inside. Okay, so here is the inside of Snake Mountain. So this panel, I believe, just attaches here like so. The throne doesn't really go anywhere in particular, but I'll display that up here. This piece here, the sticker was placed there in the original set, so I guess that's where you would set that. The table doesn't really have a home in particular, just kind of displays anywhere. Here's with the ladder. Now, this door, you'll see here, there's like a breakaway, this is where the breakaway wall goes. So this fits in here somehow. Well, I'll get that together later. But basically the jail door goes there and the breakaway wall goes behind it. So that way anybody that Skeletor reports in the prison, He-Man can come along, punch the wall, and then rescue his pals. The net, so that will attach here. So that anybody that falls through this trap door mechanism, which I'm not sure how to trigger, I'll have to figure that out. But they fall through here, they get caught in the net. And then lastly, I just need to attach these heads to this wall here. Okay, so here it is, all set up from the inside. So we got the throne, control panel, got the door on the jail as well as the breakaway wall on the other side. We got our monster pit, our table. I've got the net attached. I still haven't figured out how to work the trap door yet, so I'll have to mess around with that a little bit more. I've got all the demonic faces attached. I don't know if I have them in the right spots. I don't know if there's designated pegs for each one, but they're okay where they are for now. So yeah, this is basically the final product for the inside of Snake Mountain. So I hope you enjoyed the unboxing segment that I just showed you. I filmed that the other day when this thing arrived on Thursday. So you were seeing my kind of initial reactions of this thing, seeing it for the first time. So now we're going to take a closer look at it now that I have it actually set up here in the man cave. But before I show you the castle, I did just want to show you a little bit about the instructions that came with it here. So you saw me pull this out in the last segment. So these are the instructions that come with it. So it's got a very retro feel, the way it's all kind of drawn and shows you all the different pieces. And this thing folds out and it shows you kind of step by step of like how to attach everything. So I guess maybe I should have looked at this when I was assembling it, but I think I figured it out okay. But one thing that's really cool about this is you see like Orko kind of guiding you along and adding his like comments as he goes. So that's pretty cool. This thing continues to fold out and it carries over on the other side. So again, more diagrams of Orko showing you where everything goes. So yeah, even though I was able to figure everything out on my own without the instructions, this was still kind of a pretty cool little thing to have. But the main reason why I decided to flip things around here so I had more area to work with is packaged with the instructions was this extra piece. And this here is a poster of the original artwork that's on the front of the box, which is really cool because that's, you know, it's incredible artwork on that box here. And yeah, so the fact that they gave it to on a poster, it's a huge poster. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if I have room to hang it anywhere. But anyway, so here it is. So you can see right from the top, you've got Skeletor at the top of the mountain with He-Man coming up to battle him. You got Beastman and Stratos, Teela. You got Merman over here. So yeah, if I back up a little bit, I'll try and get the whole thing in frame. But yeah, you can see it's a pretty big poster. So I do plan to keep the box that I got with this thing, but it's going to end up probably full of other junk and in storage. So it's really cool that they gave a poster that I can display this box art somewhere, and who knows, maybe I will get this mounted and hang it up somewhere. But it is so big, so I don't know that I'll be able to find room. But still, a really cool kind of like bonus gift, because I don't think we were told we were going to get this at the time of the pre-order. So pretty cool. All right, so here is Snake Mountain. Now you might be thinking, this looks a little smaller than it looked in the last segment. That's because this is the retro or the vintage version of Snake Mountain. So this is the one that I had when I was a kid. So let's just take a look at that. So you can see here it's got all kinds of nice sculpted detail throughout. Now one of the chains here on the shackles is broken off. So this is just a solid piece of plastic. It did still attach to somebody's wrist. You just had to kind of stretch that plastic a little bit to get it around somebody's wrist. So yeah, I'm missing a chain here. I'm missing the stickers on the eyes because this guy did have kind of like brightly colored eyes as well. Let's see here, the mouth moves. There's a little lever on the inside, so if you pull that lever, you can make it cackle or whatever you want to do. So you see there's this sculpted walkway along here. Then there was this hole here for no particular reason. I guess just the entrance into Snake Mountain. And then up here you'll see we've got the gate with that wolf head on there that just swings back and forth. It's got this here. You got the snake. So this looks like it's supposed to be like a real, like biological living snake. So he kind of wraps around. You can see how he attaches there. Just kind of knocked him off. But yeah, so he wraps around, folds around. And there's the trap door that's activated by the little lever inside. And the main other feature you see out here is this rat head, which he's a little scuffed up. But you pull this thing out of here, and he worked like an echo mic. Very dusty. But you could talk inside of there. And if you had batteries in this thing, it would give you this kind of echoey voice coming through there. So yeah, there it is on the outside. Maybe I'll just spin it around and we'll take a look at the inside as well. So here's the inside of the vintage Snake Mountain. So you can see here, I had the bridge that goes on the outside. I had it tucked on the inside here. You've got some stickers that show some bones and some creatures along the bottom there. You can see where the Echo mic plugs into this control panel. That's where you would have fit like a D battery. I'm missing the panel that goes on the outside. The on and off switch there. And then over here, so there's the other side of that, the hole where you could enter. You got this sticker on the bottom that shows these creatures. And then with these pegs here, this is where the net attached. I don't have my net currently. And again, the lever, here's the lever for the trap door. So you spin that, and then the trap door would fall through and somebody could fall through the net. So there you go. You'll notice there's nowhere to really like stand on the inside other than standing them on the floor. But this thing here kind of takes up a lot of space, and this here doesn't look like anybody could stand there because it's a pool of muck or slime. So yeah, unlike Castle Grayskull that had second floors where there was a throne and where people could stand, there wasn't a whole lot to do on the inside of this vintage playset. Most of the action would have taken place on the outside. So here again is the outside of the vintage Snake Mountain. I've attached the bridge so you can see the two pieces kind of snap together and they plug into those holes. So So there you go. That's what the finished product looks like. Now let's shimmy over here and take a look at the new Snake Mountain. So you can see that size-wise, it is quite a bit bigger. So let me just back up here and try and get both of them in the frame. So yeah, you can see that Super 7 has really upsized this playset from the vintage one. So now let's get up close and take a look at some of the detail here. So I really like all this like veiny vines that they've painted all throughout here. That's one of the things that was really lacking on the vintage one, is you'll notice it had a lot of those vines sculpted but not really painted. So here it really kind of gives it like an added like realism, makes it feel like this thing is just kind of gross and crawling with these vines. I really love these sculpted spikes everywhere. Like these sharp little spikes are coming off of this thing all over the place. And you didn't really get that on the vintage one, but here they're everywhere. Also, you'll notice the path on the vintage one. So a character could walk up here over the bridge, and they come up here and it kind of stops here. It doesn't feel like much of a trek. Over here, it feels like a much longer adventure. You start down here, march up this way, cross the bridge, past the waterfall, or the lava fall, and then all the way up this staircase here. And that finally brings them up to this platform. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Now as for the lava fall, so that's translucent plastic, I've got like a little spotlight behind it right now, so it's giving it that really cool glow effect. So that looks really great. It's really cool. You got these faces throughout this thing. Then of course you got the main face here. And its mouth moves, so you can still make it laugh or chew on somebody. Now with this one, the lever doesn't go to the inside, so you can't control it from the inside like on the vintage one, but you can just move it right here. The shackles, so these are a lot better than on the vintage one. It's real metal chains, and then to open the shackles, you kind of just split those apart, and you can see how you can snap that around the wrist of whoever you get captive there. So that's really cool. More of those veiny vines growing everywhere. And you've got the rat head. So this one looks more like a statue, like it's carved in stone, as opposed to the vintage one, which looked like it had a real living rat. I think this one makes more sense, so I like the stone version better. Let's take a look at all the details in here. Again, all these little spikes protruding out of there just really makes the place feel dangerous. And then also the snake. So the snake's a little odd in that clearly you could tell in the vintage one it's supposed to be like a living snake, I would say. But here it's clearly like a sculpted stone snake. Like this doesn't feel like a living creature. He looks like he's made out of rock. Now it still does have some movement, so you can move that up and down a little bit, but it doesn't kind of wrap around the way the vintage one did, which was kind of cool. So if you had somebody on the platform, the snake could kind of come around and scare them. You don't really get that same effect over here. But yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say about the outside. If you'd like to see some figures on it, we could do that. So here on the vintage set, you see I've got my vintage merman on there. Now if we come over here, this one is meant for the Masters of the Universe Classics figures. So there's my Classics merman. So it's much larger for him. It's maybe about 5 figures high. And just the size of this thing, like it just looks much more impressive. But what I think I will do is I'll use my new Masters of the Universe Origins figures to display on this. And I think they scale much better with it. So there's the Origins Merman, which is more to scale with the retro toy line. And you can see when he comes down this path, I think it's just scaled better for him. Everything just looks a little better with these Origins figures. So again, here is the inside of the vintage Snake Mountain with the vintage Merman. So you can see there's not too many places for him to go. Like he can stand there, or he can stand here. But otherwise, there's not much play value inside. Now, if we come over to this one, there's a lot more stuff to do. Or at the very least, there's a lot more places to display your characters. So, you know, to me, I kind of feel displaying this with the outside facing is the way to go because the outside is so striking. But I would totally get it if people chose to display it this way too, because you do have room to display multiple figures inside. So this whole second floor is a new feature, which is similar to what we had in Castle Grayskull. And there's a weird little sticker here, which matches the dungeon sticker in Castle Grayskull. So I'm not sure what that's supposed to imply. Maybe this is the other end of that sewer, so it leads right directly from here to Castle Grayskull. I don't know. But yeah, like this rat-faced pillar. So it attaches there. So where on the vintage one, it just kind of hangs. You just like pick it up and you set it. It rests there. This one here, you attach it to the floor. So there's just that little peg there, little hole there. So you can attach that. You can spin it around. So if you want to display it with the rat face out or in, you can do either one. Again, there's that little door. It's not very big, so I don't know what you can store in there, but you could store some extra swords or weapons or something in there, I suppose. Definitely not big enough for a character. So yeah, this whole jail aspect. So that's new. So the door doesn't lock or anything, but there you go. There's not much room. You'll see how narrow that is. Like you can barely fit a character in there. Also, it's kind of funny that the whole side is open, so really anybody you put in that jail could just walk right out the side. But I think the intent with that, bear with me a second, is if you put, let's grab my vintage Merman here. If I put Merman in this prison and close it like so, I think the intent is that you could reach around the side and still play with them. Like, oh, I'm in prison. But, you know, that might work in theory, but this is so, this is so narrow. There's really barely any room for you to get your hand in there. So, you know, at least it's something. It's added play value. I should mention with this lava waterfall, like that's a completely new function. Like there was no waterfall on the vintage toy, and it is a really cool feature. So I really like that a lot. Now carrying over to this side. So now, before there was a whole, that sticker on the vintage line that covered this area. But now you can use that, that's wide open, so you can display characters down in there, and they can have a meeting or something in there. So that's pretty cool. Then you've got this little area here, so a couple of stairs up to that, that hole on the side. That's pretty cool. And this ledge, again, this is something we didn't have before, so this gives you another area to display figures on. So I like that. Somebody can kind of hide back in here behind all this dripping like stalagmites or whatever. So that's kind of cool. There's those heads that I attached. The instructions says you can stick those wherever you like, so there's not really a correct placement for those. So yeah, there's just stuff. There's places to put your characters on this one, which I think is really cool. And then we scroll up further. We've got the net. And then this platform. Like there's quite a bit of room to stand here too. Like when you open this up, you've got the area to stand out front, and then you've got all this area to stand out back, which the vintage one didn't have. If you go over here, there's nothing other than the trap door, which is technically on the other side of the gate. So on the inside, there was nowhere to stand on that ledge. But here, we technically have like So 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories of places to display characters on here. And I still haven't quite figured out this trap door. Okay, I figured it out. It's not super easy to get to. And you can see how the floor collapses. It's different from the vintage line. It falls kind of down where the vintage one fell down this way. This one kind of falls that way. And there is a little teeny lever here. Right there. But yeah, there was a little piece of Scotch tape that was keeping this thing from falling. So, at least now I figured that out. So there we go. So that's the inside. Now let's take another look at those accessories that I showed you earlier. So here is the bone throne, up nice and close. And yeah, so that I've got the vintage merman sitting in there right now. But this is nice that this piece isn't attached here. You're not forced to keep the throne there, which I think in Castle Grayskull it's stationary. But here, if you want to, display this here or whatever, you can. So a lot of cool detail in there with that skull. I'm not sure what type of skull that would be. Like, is this all supposed to be one crazy beast? Because that's a pretty weird looking rib cage. But yeah, a very cool accessory. So it's great that Skeletor finally has his bone throne. Then we've got this table, which I believe is right out of the cartoons. I haven't watched the cartoons in a long time, so I don't remember if this is exact or not, but that's pretty cool. Again, it's a simple accessory. It doesn't do anything. Like, this orb doesn't glow or doesn't spin, but it's just like a really cool accessory, and like it fits inside the castle if you want to put it, or inside the mountain, I guess, if you want to put it in there. But I really think it helps to kind of expand the size and the scope of this playset if you kind of bring it outside of the playset like so. And then lastly, we have this monster pit, which has got those sculpted monsters right off of the sticker. And then it's got these 3 tentacles, which are strong enough to hold up a character. So that's really cool. This is one of my favorite parts about this whole Snake Mountain. I really love this. One of the last things I'm going to talk about, and it's not really a concern for me, because I'm going to display this thing open and I'm going to display it with the front side out. But I just know this from watching other review videos, is this thing doesn't clasp shut, which is maybe a bummer. I don't think it's a big deal, because when I was a kid, I might want to take this playset over to my friend's house to play. So what you would do is just close it up like that. These hinges would snap shut. So there you go, get those 2 hinges. And then this here worked as a handle, and you could just pick up the whole thing and carry it around with you. This here, you can't really do that. It's too heavy. I wouldn't recommend picking it up by this thing, especially because this was an extra piece that we had to snap in. I'd be worried if you tried to pick the whole thing up by this, it might break. But also there's no hinges, so you can't lock this thing into a closed position. Now it does fold into a closed position, but to fold it, this thing has to come out. You have to unplug this rat statue, and I think you actually have to unplug some of these faces and stuff too. So yeah, if you were going to fold this up, you have to yank these things out, kind of chuck them all on the floor inside, and then you could seal it up. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer when you think they were able to, figure that out on the vintage one, nearly 40 years ago. That how come they couldn't figure out how to make this thing close without removing all the parts and stuff. I don't know. But again, it's not a really big deal to me, but in case that's a big deal to you, I guess that's just something to consider. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Snake Mountain for now. Okay, so that was my unboxing and my review of Snake Mountain from Super 7. So I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate those of you that watched this, because again, I know I'm probably the last person in the world to post their review of this toy. If you wanted to know about this playset, you could have watched dozens of other videos before I got around to posting this one. So thank you if you sat through this one. And yeah, so I guess that's it. I'll be back soon with another episode. So if you enjoyed this one, make sure you hit that the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please leave me some comments below. I always appreciate that. So until next time, ciao.